My name is Robin Kidd.
How did you get to Africa?
Well, let me tell you about the time I went to Africa the second time, because I travelled overland that time, and I started from England and crossed the English Channel from Southampton to Cherbourg, and then got a lift with an American all the way down to Pamplona in Spain, and carried on across Spain through Madrid right down to the south to near Gibraltar to a town called Algeciras, and there I got a ferry across the Straits of Gibraltar into Africa at Tangier.
Dad.
Yes. Now let's change to this other map, which has got a bit more detail of where it was. So here we are in Tangier, and I carried on as far as Rabat.
How about the boat and the lorries?
I haven't got there yet. Hang on. I was hoping to go to south on this western part of the Sahara, but I couldn't because you weren't allowed to go to Mauritania. So from Rabat I had to take the train all the way across to Algiers.
Dad.
There, yes. And then in Algiers I had to get visas to go into Mali, and then I travelled all the way down into the south of Algiers through places like this Colombechar here, down to... No, I was had lifts in lorries and things like that.
No, I mean, did you walk to the train?
I walked to the train, yes. I didn't have any transport of my own. And so when I got to Adrar, that was the place where you had to wait for the convoys of lorries to go south across the Sahara. And that was several days waiting, and eventually the lorries were ready, and they took me all the way down, right across the desert, and it took us several days and nights until we got to the town called Gao, which is on the river Niger.
Here.
Yes, and the first time I saw the river Niger, it was a bit like this photograph here, because it was evening and we were travelling on this lorry through black rocks and so on, and came to the top of a hill, and as we looked across towards the west we could see the sunlight shining on the water of the river, and as the sun went down it was pink, and in amongst the pink you could see the very green of the weeds growing in the river, and it was such a contrast to the dry landscape all around us, and that was a wonderful sight. So when we got...
Did you like it?
Yes, it was lovely. And when we got to Gao, I had to wait for a riverboat to take me up the river Niger, and that took a few days waiting, and eventually the boat came and it set off up here to a place which was on the river near to Timbuktu, and I'd met up some other English people there, and we jumped in a taxi and went up to Timbuktu to see what it was like, but because it was a Sunday there was no market in Timbuktu, so it was all very empty, so we had to go back to the boat and carry on, and got all the way to Bamako, where when you get to Bamako the river splits up into lots of little channels called the inland delta of the river Niger, and so the ships can't go any further, so we had to get a lorry, and we went all the way to Bamako.
You and your friends?
Yes, with these other people.
Were they your friends?
They were then, yes, because we've been travelling together for several days. And Bamako is the capital of Mali, and there we caught the train into Senegal all the way down here to this place called, let me remind myself,
Grandad, you
Tambacounda.
Did you meet your friends?
No, I didn't meet any friends on the train, but there were lots of very nice people on the train who, in that country, the tradition is if you are travelling and you're going to have something to eat, you share it with everybody else on the train with you.
And then did you make friends?
Yes. And then I got off the train there and went down to the river Gambia. And then I caught the river boats on the Gambia up to the capital, which is now called Banjul, but when I was there it was called Bathurst.
What did you do there?
Well, when I first arrived in Bathurst, I didn't have a job at all, but somebody found me a job teaching at the Gambia High School. Well, it just happened that one of the teachers was not able to teach for that term, and so they asked me to take his place. He was a teacher from the Gambia, although there were a mixture of teachers in the school. Some came from England and some were Gambian.
What was the school like?
Well, it was quite a modern building.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. And it was the best school in the country, so it was where the brightest children in the country went to school. It was quite a simple building, the school, because they didn't. Being in a hot country, it didn't have to have any heating and that sort of thing.
Oh, just the boys and girls.
Well, this was a secondary school, so they started going to that school when they were about 11 years old, and up to the sixth form when they were 16 or 17. But I was teaching some of the younger children in the first class, and there were boys and girls in this school.
Both together?
Yes, they were both together, and there were some very clever girls in the school. And
did they put their hands up?
yes, they asked some very interesting questions.
Sort of things did they eat for lunch?
Well, they had lots of fruit and vegetables.
That's a cover school, garden field.
They didn't grow the food in the school, but in the Gambia they grew lots of fruit and vegetables, things particularly like bananas, and groundnuts were an important crop there. Well, peanuts.
Peanuts.
Yes. So what we used to have for dinners was stews that were made with meat. You could buy a big lump of meat at the market for a shilling, and they had the ground up peanut paste, which you could buy for a penny, and you could make a stew up from that.
Were you allowed to have nuts there?
Yes.
My garden field is not nuts.
And some of the children used to sit in the class eating peanuts, and they used to shell them, and they would keep the nuts under the desk so that they thought the teacher couldn't see them, and then they just flick them up and catch them in their mouth.
What did the people do for fun?
Well, the children would play outside because it was warm weather. We could go swimming because there was a very nice beach. It was right next to the sea, and so it was a very nice beach to go swimming. There were some very interesting ideas that the people there had. One of the children at the school told me this story about a village near the capital, and there, next to the village, there was a lake with a crocodile in it, and when babies were born, they used to be left by the lake, and the idea was that they thought this crocodile was sacred, and if this crocodile let the children live, they were meant to live. If the crocodile caught them, then that was what was meant to happen.
Did you like it?
No, I thought that was rather a horrifying story. But they also believed in ghosts, and they told me stories. I was staying in a house which was right next to the graveyard, and we knew that we didn't ever have to lock the house up because nobody would come to the house next to the graveyard because they were afraid of all the ghosts. And they told me a story too about in the town, if you went into the town at night, there were these market trolleys that the porters pulled around with fruit and vegetables on them, and that these could travel around the town at night time, and you had to keep out of their way because they were evil.
How long did you stay there?
I only stayed there for about 2 or 3 months because while I was there I was offered a job somewhere else which I wanted to accept, but while I was there it happened to be the time that the Gambia had its independence from Britain. Before that it was a British colony, and they had this big ceremony where the Marines beat retreats and they lower the British flag and raise the Gambian flag, and then the Gambia was an independent country. And so that was very interesting and very enjoyable thing to experience, and a big firework display after the ceremony, and lots of important visitors came to the country as well.
How long did you stay in Africa overall?
Well, after I'd left the Gambia and I went to this other job which was on the copper belt in Zambia where they mined for copper, and I was there for another 2 years, and then I came back to this country.
Did you enjoy your time?
Yes, I enjoyed my time in Zambia, but it was very interesting because I learnt a lot about how the British treated the people in the countries that they ruled over. And Zambia, which was previously called Northern Rhodesia, was, apart from the copper belt where they got all the copper, it wasn't as well developed as the rest of southern Rhodesia, or even Nyasaland as it was then called, which became Malawi. So I learnt a lot about the countries and the people, and it changed my way of thinking about things very much. So yes, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you for coming.
You're very welcome.